Hey guys, ¿cómo allez-vous? Here's my first video of 2020. And it's already almost March. You guys may recall a couple of weeks ago, Parasite became the first foreign language film to win Best Picture at this year's Academy Awards. So in honor of that, I decided it'd probably be a good idea to do some research and make a video about South Korean cinema, because I don't know much about it, and you probably don't know much about it, so why don't we just dive right in? And I apologize ahead of time if I mispronounce something, because I know I will. Very little remains of Korea's early film history. The majority of the footage was lost due to the destruction of the Korean War, and not a single feature produced before 1934 survives in complete form today. From 1909 to 1920, a series of theaters were built in Seoul and other regional cities. These theaters screened European and American imports, and the capital from the screenings was eventually used to finance Korea's first domestic productions. Korea's first film, The Righteous Revenge, was a kinodrama, in which actors performed against the backdrop of a projected feature. It debuted at Seoul's Dansongsa Theater in 1919. This is what historians mark as the beginning of Korean cinema. The colonial government required all domestic and foreign films to be approved by a government censorship board before being screened, and even had police officers present at movie theaters during screenings. Censorship became even stricter in the 1930s, and pro-Japanese films became more prominent. Many films that challenged Japanese rule were either banned or destroyed. Many historians believe that actor-director Na Won-hyu was the first pioneer of Korean film. Na's work set the standard for the 80 or so films produced during Korea's silent era from 1926 to 1934. His most popular film, Airirang, displayed themes of nationalism. Based on the popular folk song, it is a patriotic tale of local resistance to foreign invaders. Although the implied attack on Japanese imperialists was cognizant to Korean viewers, Japanese authorities were surprisingly slow to catch on to the political statement of the film. In 1935, Korea made its first sound feature, based on its most famous folk tale, which has been filmed over a dozen times. However, local filmmakers found it difficult to raise money to produce sound features. In 1937, Japan invaded China, and the Korean filmmakers would come under increasing pressure to shoot films that supported the Japanese military in the war effort. And by 1942, Korean language films were banned outright by the government. Only 5 films have survived from the period between the US occupation of Korea and the end of the Korean War. The most famous of which was Viva Freedom, released in 1946. It was an ode to patriotism with anti-Japanese sentiments. It was a major success with audiences. During the Korean War, much of the country's infrastructure was destroyed, and many filmmakers became involved in shooting war documentaries and newsreels. After the Armistice Agreement in 1953, President Rhee Syngman declared that cinema be exempt from all tax, in hopes of rejuvenating the industry. Foreign aid programs provided South Korea with film technology and equipment, setting the stage for the rebirth of Korean cinema in the 50s and 60s. With the disbandment of censorship restrictions, Korea saw an emergence of creative expression. In the late 1950s and early 1960s, Korea's domestic film industry enjoyed an unprecedented surge in the box office. One of South Korea's most renowned directors of this era was Kim Ki-young. Kim is known for his gritty domestic dramas, and in 1960 he released his most famous film, The Housemaid. The film tells the tale of a housemaid who seduces her master. It transgressed the laws of contemporary cinema to the same extent that its heroine tears apart the Confucian order of her household. In 1962, military dictator Park Chung-hee instituted a highly constrictive motion picture law, which caused a severe consolidation in the number of film companies and which strengthened government control once again over all aspects of the film industry. Although accomplished films would continue to be made until the end of the decade, such restrictive policies would ultimately have a severe impact on creativity. In 1973, the Korean Motion Picture Promotion Corporation was introduced with the purpose of supporting and promoting domestic films in South Korea. The organization predominantly centered on positive political films for the purpose of pushing government principles. However, the films promoted by this organization were generally unpopular with Korean audiences, and now that televisions were more widely accessible, Korea entered a long period of declining admissions. An infusion of new talent in the early 80s would bring about a modest revival in the industry. Although attendance remained low, the 80s saw a slight relaxation of censorship and an increase of recognition from the international film community, such as Kang Soo-yeon's Best Actress Award at the 1987 Venice Film Festival for her role in Surrogate Mother. In 1984, the motion picture law was revised, and independent production became legal. The result of this saw an emergence of a new generation of filmmakers that would eventually have a major impact on Korean cinema. Then in 1988, military leader Roh Tae-woo enacted a new constitution which led to the gradual ease of political censorship. One of the first movies to take advantage of this was 1988's Chilsu and Mansu. However, it was not all positive for local filmmakers. Another change in policy lifted import restrictions on foreign films and allowed Hollywood to set up branch offices in South Korea. These new laws would mean that for the first time, Korean films would have to compete directly with Hollywood. Over the next few years, domestic films would gradually lose their market share, reaching a low point in 1993. The screen quota system, in which theaters had to screen Korean films 106 to 146 days out of the year, remained the only protection against foreign competition during this time. It was finally in the late 1990s that the Korean film industry enjoyed a supportive government, a stable economic environment, and a sensible film policy. The Korean Wave, or Hallyu, refers to a time in the 1990s where Korean culture was internationally visible. Not only in East Asia, but in countries like the United States, saw a surge in Korean values. Television shows, pop music, and feature films were all part of the wave phenomenon. One of the first Korean blockbusters was Shuri, a film about a North Korean spy in Seoul. It was the first film in South Korea history to sell more than 2 million tickets in Seoul alone. Shuri was followed by other blockbusters including Joint Security Area, My Sassy Girl, and Silbido. South Korea began to attract significant international attention due to the film Oldboy, which won the Grand Prix at the Cannes Film Festival in 2004. Director Bong Joon-ho's The Host and his English-language film Snowpiercer are among the highest-grossing films in South Korea and are praised by foreign film critics. Then in 2019, his masterpiece Parasite won the Cannes Film Festival's Palme d'Or Award, and at the 92nd Academy Awards, it was the first time that South Korea had any sort of recognition. Parasite ended up winning Best Picture, Best Director, Best International Foreign Language Film, and Best Screenplay. And now with Parasite making history at this year's Oscars, it seems that there will be a greater interest in South Korean cinema, and hopefully their local industry will continue to grow. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video and you learned something, please give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to see more videos and you'd like to see my face talking about stuff, please subscribe. And I would appreciate if anybody had any comments or questions or any criticisms about the video, please let me know down below. And I think my next video that I'll be posting is going to be my short film, hopefully, so that's exciting. And yeah, again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye! So in honor of that, I decided it might be a good idea to do some research and make a video about South Korea cinnamon. What?